America. So allow me to introduce our three panelists. First, we have Stan Penfold, who is a city councilman from Salt Lake City. Stan is also the executive director of the Utah AIDS Foundation, so he is serving. Next, we have Katie Wolfgang, who is the chief service officer from Philadelphia. And last, we have Carrie Sullivan, who is president of the Bank of America Charitable Foundation. Carrie. And Carrie's doing double, triple, quadruple duty. She was just doing another fantastic panel this morning on transforming leadership. Please be seated. Join me in welcoming our panelists again. So let's start with Stan and Katie. Stan and Katie, you both bring a local perspective about what it means to really focus your service and volunteering assets. Stan, let's start by talking to you. What does service mean in Salt Lake City? And more specifically, what does it mean for the ability of innovative organizations to grow and increase their impact?
Actually, Salt Lake City, you may know, is always rated right up there at the top for volunteer involvement. In fact, it was really tempting for me to not bring a big foam #1 finger in here and wave it around. One of the things that I'm very aware of in Salt Lake is that volunteerism is grounded in sort of the basic culture of the community. It started as a religious movement to help people in hardship, but has actually translated into this amazing expectation in many ways of people to be involved in their community as volunteers. The funny thing to me is that coming from the nonprofit arena, the Utah AIDS Foundation, where the whole organization was founded on a group of volunteers, like many organizations that felt like there was a problem that was not being addressed. The Salt Lake City Corporation has not really embraced its volunteer programming. It just sort of happens, and we didn't actually hire a volunteer coordinator until about a year ago, who has been overwhelmed. And one of the connections that I realized is critical in that process is sometimes we assume that everybody's doing it and everybody knows how to support volunteer work, and that's an assumption we shouldn't be making. One of the responsibilities I think we all have to our leaders, our community leaders, the people who support us in elected positions, is to ask for that support at a level that embraces volunteer work and encourages people to be engaged on their own and to be engaged with their community.
Fantastic. You know, since you brought up the point, Stan, you have to share, just because we're in the family, what would you say is the secret sauce in terms of Utah staying #1? And what's some advice that you would give to states that may be trying to increase and compete with you?
Compete? I think it's good. I'd like people to compete with our volunteer programming. You know, I think it really comes down to a partnership that started for us as a state many years ago when the state was organized in a religious culture, and is very common to religious cultures, but expanded, I think, into the private sector and the nonprofit sector and the government political sector. And I think it's that partnership, those four entities, if you will, really working together and leveraging the resources from each of those, the unique resources from each of those areas that makes partnerships and volunteer activities so successful in Utah.
Fantastic, thank you. Katie, let's go to you.
As one of the nation's first chief service officers, I'm part of a really dynamic crew. Many folks are here with me in DC, from Atlanta and Austin, Baltimore, Baton Rouge, Pittsburgh, Little Rock, Orlando and Nashville, and of course, New York, the first city of service. All of us and many, many more are working through the Cities of Service Coalition to really bring impact volunteering as a critical strategy strategy to mayors and to mayoral administrations. And so while I can't wait to tell you what's happening in Philadelphia, I really want to underscore that it's happening in many, many places, many more every year. And so I think that Cities of Service working together with the Corporation for National Community Service provides the ideal infrastructure to continue to move this service momentum that we all keep talking about. So everybody heard yesterday Neil Bush referring to Philadelphia as the place where the first all-volunteer fire department got its legs, and I always think that that's the perfect example of impact volunteering. We didn't ask neighbors to come out with buckets of water and to solve the problem. We said, we know citizens can do this, but we need a plan and a strategy and a way of organizing them and measuring their outcome. And once we had that, then we mobilized volunteers and made that happen back in 1776. And so when you look forward at what's happening in Philadelphia now under the great Mayor Nutter, it's exciting to see how that spirit has really continued. And so Mayor Nutter, if you hear him in Philadelphia or anywhere else, really talks about how proud he is to be mayor of his hometown. And I think that's really because of that spirit of service. And so when he was elected in 2008, one of the very first things he decided to tackle was an issue that came up constantly through the primaries and the general election, and that was just that the city was becoming really dirty. And so he knew that he couldn't solve that with policy or with money. He could only do it through volunteers. And so again, he didn't go knocking on individual doors or getting, simply on the radio or out in front of the podium. He went to a network, an organized structure in the city, our 6,000 strong block captain network, grassroots community leaders who know which sidewalks needs to be cleaned, knows which lots and alleyways need to be cleared out. He asked them to mobilize their neighbors. The city provided the supplies, but they did all the organizing and recruiting and got that work done. So now, 6 years later, we've had 6 years in a row of the Philly Spring Cleanup. There's a Keep Up the Sweep Up effort that's going on all year long. We've had 300,000 volunteers clear 6 million pounds of trash and over 1 million pounds of recycling. And that happened not because we thought, oh, it's good for one person or another person, but we have a systematic approach to that. And so Cities of Service allowed us to build on that. I think the mayor was really excited to be a Cities of Service leadership grant winner because we could use that resource to figure out how do we take that approach and bring it across city government. And so in 2010, when I was lucky enough to come on, we immediately opened the Mayor's Office of Civic Engagement and Volunteer Service. We knew it's not about a person, but about a team. And the most important thing we did when we did that, open that office, was to meet immediately with the state office located in Philadelphia of the Corporation for National Community Service. It's where I got to meet Mary Strasser, who now leads AmeriCorps Vista nationally, but at the time was in Pennsylvania, and she said, you have a really big job and you're gonna need some help. And I think that the Vistas are the help that you need. And so in that year, we started with 2 Vistas who helped us set up the office, get our website launched, and start to build relationships and partnerships across city government. So this year, we're preparing now to have 25 Vistas through the state office and other partnerships, including with Points of Light and Bank of America, 25 Vistas who are embedded in city government, in departments very, very diverse, Parks and Rec, Managing Director's Office, Office of Policy, all working with full-time staff, helping them build their capacity and build their infrastructure and strategies to engage volunteers and mobilize citizens in ways that align with their goals, so that so service is not off on the side as something special, but it's integrated into all the work that we do. And I think that is really at the heart of what's going to move this forward. And the last thing I'll say about this is that one of the things that's been exciting watching the Vistas is that they know national service. They understand how important it is. So they help us build further connections with the city, with a terrific nonprofit running an RSVP program to help us with senior hunger issues. We had a Vista working in the managing director's office on an innovative crime fighting strategy, and she said, they need more than me, they need an NCCC team. And so she found the local campus, she brought the staff in, applied, managed that team when they came, figured out the protocols so that another person could manage a future team. It's very exciting to see how these things build upon each other. This fall, we're very excited through the Mayor and Governor Initiative Award to start a new AmeriCorps AmeriCorps program rooted right in the city, engaging 100 AmeriCorps members in 6 months terms of service on projects designed to align with the mayor's sustainability initiatives, and we're specifically recruiting young people who are between their GED and their next stage in life, and so we see it both as an opportunity to strengthen the city and to strengthen their own workforce goals and aspirations. So I think it's really about building on all these things and institutionalizing it at the city level that's going to move us forward. And the last thing I'll say about this is I feel like everyone else here very inspired by this notion of bringing people together across the political lines. But in Philadelphia, it's a predominantly Democratic city, and we still have all the problems that we face in this country. So even if everybody's checking off the same political box, it doesn't mean those problems go away. It really means people individually have to roll up their sleeves and see themselves as in it together. And I think that the experience of service and volunteering combined with a clear infrastructure of how to make that happen is what's going to do that. So.
Wow.
I know.
Utah better watch out. Pennsylvania's on your heels. You know,
Looking over my
We're
shoulder.
quietly competitive over in the city of Philadelphia.
I always thought Chief Service Officer was one of the coolest titles that anyone could ever dream up, but I think I would also add Chief Service Evangelist. Not only for Philadelphia, but for all of us that are in this room. What a great ambassador you are, and incredible work. Absolutely.
It's a big team effort.
I want to ask a quick follow-up question, but before I do, I'm curious to get a response from all of you. We're talking about innovation, we're talking about new approaches. How many of you feel you work within entities, government organizations that allow you to be, want you to be innovative? We're with family, you can be honest. Okay, that's pretty fantastic. So as I've been going across the country talking about this Be Fearless concept, one of the things I hear over and over again is our organization does not have a fearless culture. We're not allowed to be innovative. We can't be innovative because we're dealing with taxpayer dollars and you know, we have to be very safe. So you work for Philadelphia. You threw 1776 into your remarks. So there's, you know, not an older institution around. And so how do you really bring innovation into a risk-averse culture or a big culture?
Sure. So I feel sort of excited that my answer to that question now is not so different than it would have been when I joined. I'm an alumni of the Jesuit Volunteer Corps, and so that's how I came to Philadelphia in 1996. And I sort of had this, you know, a very naive can-do attitude about there's no reason why we can't fix this problem if I'm willing to do it or somebody else is willing to do it or if I can make friends with this person or partner. And it was a little bit amazing to me that could happen. And now, all these years later, I feel like it's a lot of the same philosophy. And I think national service members understand this better than anybody else. And when we first started, people didn't know in city government what a VISTA was or AmeriCorps. I was like downstairs in this little room and people were, you know, whatever. My first VISTA is now, right. So people, they could quietly do work and people weren't paying attention. They weren't trying to stop them because they didn't know that they were moving. So my first VISTA is now the mayor's special assistant. We have a VISTA now that's about to be, when she rolls off her year of service, hired as an assistant managing director in a restructuring of a program that she helped to work on when she was a VISTA. I think that service is a little bit of a quiet backdoor into creating change, and we have plenty of places in Philadelphia that are not like freshly open to new ideas, but you just start small, and when you get turned around, you go somewhere else and you come back. And I think there's tons of people who really want to do exciting work, not just in Philadelphia, all around the country, and there's just no reason why it can't get done. I think that's the answer, and national service members, they know that more than anybody else.
Quiet infiltration. Thank you for that, Katie. Appreciate it. Let's go on to Carrie. So, Carrie, for you, Bank of America kind of prides itself in not about being about charity. You know, you're not in the business of charitable gifts. Rather, you're about community investments through your philanthropy. So question for you is, one, tell us the difference. What's the difference between making an investment in the community and doing charity? And then the follow-up to that is, why is service an attractive investment?
Well, so I think the whole notion of charity is sort of out the window. I mean, we look at it as a community investment because we bring our dollars to a problem and trying to, you know, be part of the solution, and we bring and leverage our employees. And I would say service in that is becoming an equal part of the equation. It used to be the money and you bring a few volunteers, and I think that has changed dramatically. And I'd say for a number of reasons. One is we have an army of educated, skilled individuals who want to give back. So our employees want to be engaged. And I would say 270,000 employees around the globe, we know collectively we can make an impact, but we can't do it alone. And we rely on the expertise of the nonprofits in the community that have their pulse really on that issue and know the best way to solve that issue. We can bring certain expertise to the equation, but clearly they are the drivers of how we go about making that change with them. So it's definitely a partnership, and I think that's something that is sort of the hallmark of how we approach our CSR. We're local, we're in small and large communities across the country. In the US, it's largely a mass consumer bank segment, so we're everywhere, and we want to really connect locally because that's how solutions, that's where solutions are found. So that's one thing. And I would say the other piece is, you know, the economic downturn taught us a lot, and we probably know better than most companies. We had a tough time, no doubt. But I think what we learned in all of that was there are so many problems in communities across the country that government funding and traditional philanthropy cannot solve them. And, you know, what better way for us to help is to really rally and support our volunteers. And it is, I mean, we certainly support our volunteers, and we've done a lot of work aligning programs that our employees want to engage in to our philanthropic partners. So within that whole context of the economic downturn, we kind of refocused our foundation on what we thought were 3 critical issues that really were most prevalent in low and moderate income communities, and that was about putting people back to work, so workforce development, housing, really looking at community development as a strategy. And the third was really around critical needs, and we did a lot really with food insecurity. So we kind of went back to basics. We brought our employees and expertise to it, and we're really excited about a new partnership that we're working with Points of Light and really to leverage our expertise as a financial institution for the Financial Opportunity Corps. And we're piloting it in 10 cities. Philadelphia is one of them, and we're really looking forward to taking, you know, what we know, but really leveraging that expertise with community volunteers as well as employee volunteers to deliver out that financial education piece, which is integrated across you know, all of the problems in the country. We really need to get a handle on that. So we're excited to be working, and hopefully it's a pilot that we can expand, but something that we're really looking forward to.
Incredible work. So a follow-up question for you, Carrie. You know, if innovation is the big topic of the day, I think right along it is the idea of evidence and impact. Everyone wants to know how you have evidence-based approaches and how you know if you've succeeded. Can you tell us a little bit about how Bank of America thinks about impact and return on investment?
Yeah, our return on investment really is the health of the community we're serving. I mean, we look at that as the barometer. So if we're investing in Los Angeles with a workforce development program, we'll look to see if more people are put to work, and we may be measuring something different in Boston. So we rely on the metrics of the nonprofit and whether the community, the economic base of the community is growing. And all of this, by the way, is good for the community, it's good for individuals, but it's also good for our business. So there's sort of a strategic connection to who we are as a company as well.
Fantastic. You know, what incredible, awesome examples of innovation that's taking place on all different levels, both from the private sector, inside of government, the great new chief service officers that we have around the country. And, you know, I think all around this room we could have 50 more people on this panel that are quietly making a difference. And I want to thank you guys so much for telling your stories, and I want to thank all of you for doing the work.
Thanks so much.
So before we leave, we have a treat. There is a reason that all of us do the work that